Hello, this video is going to be looking at the first battle of the English Civil War, the Battle of Edgehill. It took place on the 23rd of October 1642. The Royalists were led by Charles I himself and his nephew, Prince Rupert of the Rhine. Rupert already had quite the reputation on the continent of Europe as an excellent cavalry commander. Opposing them were a parliamentarian army led by the Earl of Essex. In this case, it was the parliamentarians that had the slight numerical advantage over the Royalists. The parliamentarians had 15,000 men in total, while the Royalists had 12,400. But this doesn't tell the whole story, because the Royalists were generally a little bit more experienced than the parliamentarians, and they had an advantage when it came to the cavalry and the dragoons. The cavalry would charge into the enemy on horseback, sometimes shooting a type of pistol first, whilst the dragoons were musketeers on horseback that would move around the battlefield to get a better position, dismount and shoot from there. And it was these type of soldiers that the Royalists were particularly well known for. So if they were going to have an advantage on the battlefield, it would surely come from these men. Here we have a really basic layout of the battle. Just in front of Edgehill was this blue army, which represents those of the Royalists led by Charles and Rupert. The red army over here, just in front of the town of Kyneton, was the parliamentary army led by the Earl of Essex. I've represented the cavalry on each side as triangles here. That includes the dragoons, which were mounted men with muskets, and I've represented the infantry with these rectangular boxes here. The battle started with Rupert's cavalry, which was over here, advancing towards the enemy. So as Rupert was going forward with his cavalry, his dragoons that were with him managed to push back the enemy dragoons and some of the muskets that were on that side of the battle. His cavalry then charged into the enemy, who started to flee towards Kyneton. And to make matters worse, some of the cavalry on this side actually defected and changed sides. Something very similar happened on the other side of the battlefield, with the Royalists again advancing the cavalry and pushing back the parliamentarian cavalry, again towards Kyneton. At this time in the battle, as the infantry blocks were marching towards one another, it was not looking good for the parliamentarians. Because as you can see now, they're going to be surrounded as the Royalist cavalry come round and attack them from the back. Well, that's what should have happened. But Prince Rupert got a little bit carried away, and flushed with victory, decided to carry on pursuing the Royalists right into Kyneton. The other flank did something similar, and rather than concentrating on the rest of the battle, they started to loot the town and the baggages of the parliamentarian army. They also became obsessed with hunting down the fugitives fleeing the battlefield. And it was at this time that some cavalry of the parliamentarians emerged from their infantry ranks. Outnumbered and with no cavalry of their own to support them, the Royalist infantry began to flee as well. Although they were pushed back, it wasn't a complete disaster for the Royalists, as in the nick of time their cavalry regrouped. But it was too late for a decisive victory, and the battle effectively ended in a draw. It's fair to say that midway through this battle, everything was in the Royalists' hands, but they really threw away this victory. And watching from the side of this battle was a man who arrived too late to participate, but would have a decisive role in the English Civil War, and his name was Oliver Cromwell.